Over the last few weeks, I've received a few requests from my viewers to make a video for people who are new to jet combat. So to all of those people, that's what I've got for you today. The first jet I ever got in War Thunder was the P-80A, and what's now called the F-80A in-game. I remember being horrendously bad at using it, and at the time, I thought it was just a bad plane, but now looking back, I realized I was just terrible and unwilling to try and improve my skill level. And in fact, it's not a bad aircraft to learn and get used to jet combat with. Before I get into this, I need to stress that every aircraft, especially early jets, have such vast differences in their performance and flying styles, so everything I'm about to say are very general guidelines to the basics of early jet combat. Also, if you have something to add or something important that I might have missed, don't be afraid to drop it down in the comments. I really like seeing what you guys all have to say about this kind of stuff. I noticed lots and lots of great ideas from you guys on my video about the addition of 4th generation fighters, and that was super nice to see. Anyway, let's talk about the most important characteristic of jet combat when it comes to survivability. That would be speed. Maintaining a high rate of speed is absolutely essential in the early stages of learning jet combat. This is because of the fact that most jet-powered aircraft, especially early ones, do not accelerate well at all and take a very long time to get up to speed. Now, why is this important? Well, if you get too slow, you basically become a sitting duck and you won't be alive for very much longer, especially if there are multiple enemies in the area, which, considering the way 7 to 8.0 matches are fought, is most of the time. Oh yeah, a quick note on a jet acceleration. Compared to props, non-afterburning jets accelerate the fastest when they are at somewhere around 70-ish% of their top speed, give or take depending on the jet, whereas props accelerate the fastest when they are at very low speeds. Obviously, there are exceptions to this, but just as a general estimate, it's something to keep in mind. Either way, it's even more of a reason to keep your speed up as much as possible. So now, I want to talk about positioning. In most early jet aircraft, I'm of the opinion that having at least a good solid amount of altitude is very helpful. This is because of something you're probably tired of hearing me say, but I'm going to say it again anyway. Energy. Energy can either be kinetic, high speed, or potential, low speed, high altitude. Altitude isn't as necessary as it is in prop battles, but it's very helpful for situations in which you need to get out of trouble. Even if the aircraft attacking you can catch you in a dive, you will likely be dragging the enemy down to lower altitude as well, which can allow for your teammates to swoop in and help you out, minimizing the risk of you and your teammates dying and preventing the loss of the match. So, to get to that advantageous position, you have to climb. Because you are used to flying props, you are likely used to pitching up at a relatively steep angle from the get-go and maintaining that at a low speed until you are at your desired altitude. In jet aircraft, you have to approach a climb a bit differently. As opposed to pitching up from the start, you are going to want to gain some speed in a straight line until you are at a fairly high rate of speed. For example, when I fly a Sabre, I'll get to 800 or 900 kilometers an hour, then pitch up just enough to not lose much speed, if any speed at all. That way, when I get to my desired altitude, I still possess a high state of energy, which gives me a huge advantage when the enemy team begins to appear. Usually, when those enemies show up, is right around the time I feel I'm at a comfortable altitude to begin engagements. So, building on that point, given that theoretical situation, it's time to pick a target. So how should you decide which target you want to engage? Well, one thing you should not do is go after the first aircraft you see. It will likely result in your death pretty quickly. Normally, I'll cruise in a straight line for a bit, paying close attention to my surroundings, watching the enemy movements, and try to figure out the best, easiest, or safest target to begin with. If I'm playing safe, I search for someone who is straying away from their team by a distance long enough that allows me time to engage for at least 1 or 2 passes. After that is usually the time where the furball has at least begun, and I'll head towards it, trying to get players at lower speed. Sometimes I'll play a bit more aggressively, especially with aircraft that have strong energy retention, and I'll go for some head-ons and risky dogfights. Obviously, there are plenty of other ways to play jets in War Thunder, but in my opinion, the more passive, safe playing fighter is the best way to get the hang of jet combat. Now that I've given you some tips and tactics, I want to share a few common mistakes that I've made in the past when I was new to jets. A couple of these will be basically reiterating previous points, but I want to just summarize the most common mistakes I made and mistakes that I see others make all the time. Hopefully, you can learn something from them. The number one mistake I see people doing more than anything else is just going straight into a turn fight with the first enemy they see. And yeah, I guess this could work sometimes if you're flying something like a meteor or a vampire, but 90% of the time it just ends poorly for everyone involved. Either you get outturned and killed by the guy you are turn fighting with, or you kill the guy you're turn fighting with and then you die from another enemy because at that point you are barely moving and essentially target practiced for that enemy. The second mistake I see quite a bit is when people full commit to head-ons with the first enemy they see. Even if your aircraft has amazing high velocity, high damage firepower, it's still basically a 50-50 shot of winning a full commit head-on. Even if you get the kill, you'll likely be damaged and out of the fight, and a lot of the time, you and the enemy both end up dead. I don't see it in the tech tree aircraft very often, but I swear I see it every match from a player flying a premium jet. But that's an issue worthy of an entire video on its own. The third mistake that I see all the time isn't exclusive at all to jets, but tunnel vision. If you don't know what that means, basically it's when somebody hyper focuses on one player, completely ignoring any and all surroundings, which spells death for that player. I would honestly put this right on up there with turn fighting because of how often this occurs now that I think about it. So, with everything said today, some of you may be left wondering what I think the best starter jet is. In my opinion, I think the best starter jet is the F-84B. I really wanted to get some good footage of me using it, but like I said in my last video, my router is just about fried and my connection is cutting in and out constantly. But luckily I'll be getting a new one this week. Anyway, the F-84 is one of the first jets you have the option of researching in the USA, sitting at a battle rating of 7.3. Which is honestly fair in my opinion, unless you get unlucky and face a whole bunch of Su-11s, which are extremely powerful even when they get up tiers. The F-84B has some good strengths and some rough weaknesses, but those weaknesses are what makes the F-84 such a good jet to start out with because it will teach you exactly what not to do. The biggest strength of the F-84 is its straight line speed, with a top speed of 948 kilometers an hour. Which is quite fast for its battle rating, but it also has some of the worst acceleration in the entire game. This poor acceleration and poor engine power is exactly why the F-84 is such a good jet to start with. If you can master the art of target selection, aim, and patience that the F-84 requires, it will make playing other higher tier jets much easier and more enjoyable when you get to them. Anyway, if you take these tips and tricks discussed here today into consideration, you will already be miles ahead of the average player who is starting to play their first jet games. I know I definitely should have watched some YouTube videos or something when I first got a jet. On that note, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hit that subscribe button and leave a comment. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.